One thing I do think we're seeing is that the direction of travel is looking really good for this area again now. I'm delighted that Rayner Spencer Mills has partnered with me on this initiative. I'm delighted also, of course, that Derek Bradley has worked with me, or his team has worked with me to set up an ethical zone on the Panacea website, which is great, and I would urge any product providers here to get involved in putting information on that, work with Panacea. They've got a huge cohort of financial advisors who look at their site. So, yeah, this is moving forwards. But now, time for discussion. Sorry, did you have?
Yes, I have a quick question, because I'm representing UKOM Research, one of the research providers actually, which works very closely with asset managers such as Alliance Trust. And I think one thing I've seen, I'm coming from the asset management world, worked for F&C and for Insight Investment, but over the last 5 years in particular, this area has grown enormously. And I think it's very important that asset managers, asset owners, providers, and clearly UKSIF and other intermediaries in the field are working much closer together to provide more education about the field. Because when we started this debate, and I started mainly with pension funds and investment consultants, so on the institutional side, there was not much clarity and transparency about the issues. And people thought, this is just a green debate, maybe another activist angle to this whole discussion. I think, the type of interest has really grown, but it has really become apparent that there is a financial and values dimension to ESG. And there is significant outperformance that can be achieved in the field over a longer period of time. I'm also a part-time academic in this field with Henry Business School, and I can absolutely confirm what you said earlier, Peter, that there is not only an interest now in the industry, but there's academic evidence for the issues. And I think it's very important, that we actually work together as providers, asset managers and asset owners in order to provide more education on these matters. So thank you very much. It's a fantastic event.
Thank you. I would say it's fairly interesting trying to pull this kind of thing together on your own. I'm used to being called up on to be a speaker, and now I'm the organiser as well, so that's slightly different dynamics. But I do hope you've enjoyed the combination, because I felt for a long time this kind of combining of the different areas of expertise that we need to come together but just kind of haven't. It is really important, and if this works going forward, well, let's do another one somewhere down the line. Let's keep it going if there's the demand for it. But in the meantime, are there any other questions? Otherwise, I've got one or two thoughts, but please, Richard.
It's Richard Essex, IFA Brayside, and I'm a member of the Ethical Investment Association. I was particularly taking Simon's point about the idea of the fact that you're investing in a sustainable way, you're embedding extra value. And I do think that is the key to expanding the retail market in this area. Because for too long, the retail market has just been lazy on this, and I'm talking about, it's just ethical investments, you make a sacrifice to your returns, that's it. And it's completely changed. I mean, the whole idea that you're now looking at environment, social and governance, there's a whole streams of evidence to support that this does create extra long-term value. And we've had so many hiccups in the market. I mean, I've been in IFA for 25 years. And, I just think it adds fantastic value. And when I speak to clients, but the key is that we have to bring it in to the intermediary language. And for too long, ESG has been this kind of sort of institutional thing that's been, and we need to actually say to people, right, okay, you do need to look under the bonnet of where you invest, and you do, and explain to them that this is what a fund manager does. And I do think that for too long, IFAs have kind of, I don't know why, but they kind of drifted away from that. And so I do think that, I think it's excellent that we've got these so much more resources now. And I mean, certainly from my point of view, I use Julia's questionnaire. I think that adds really good value. But I do think that, I guess as a sort of industry, we need to be talking about this whole idea of ESG, whether we kind of find another way of defining it, possibly, because it still sounds a little bit like, I don't know, scientific, but it's so valuable. And I just think we're just, The regulator, I'm not even sure they understand what ESG is. The FA,
the senior level people do. We've had a senior level regulator and UKSIF board meeting, more in the context of impact investing and social investing than mainstream. And they understood it, and they made all the right noises. But Derek's version of the world chimes with what I hear from Richard and his peers. So there's something there, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But I think we would probably all agree the situation is not optimal.
I heard a journalist describe SRI as the best story she'd ever heard in finance, but it was the worst told story she'd ever come across. Which maybe is part of it in communication.
Well,
but then there's also another response that I've got from people as well, which is from being totally taking sustainability into account, they then jump all the way over to say, oh well, all good fund managers take this into account anyway, don't they? So, it's all been done. I still don't need to worry about it.
Well, how great that people think that, because that's an opportunity. That's a research piece for Blue and Green or something, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, right, get into that one.
But I think also, the more we do, more everybody talks about it, then the whole process is going to improve anyway, isn't it? That's the way things work. If people think, well, this is important, they're going to make more of an effort to improve their processes.
So you have to.
Positive.
Yeah, I'm just, so Chris Redmond, I'm a discretionary manager rather than an advisor, and I offer the ESG service, and I find it incredibly difficult to get people to buy into it, because they think all of the usual things that you're saying. They think, A, you can't make money, B, it's weird, it's all tree hugging, and it's a real effort to get people to accept that you can achieve sensible investment returns, risk-adjusted returns that you need, and do it the right way. And I'm just interested in your ideas as to how one gets this message out to the public. I speak to advisors and they say, well, I don't need it because no one's ever asked for it. I've been a regular investment manager most of my career, and I'm very familiar with offering the excuse, not now, but a number of years ago, that actually you can't make money, don't bother. So I'm used to all the excuses, but I think the real challenge is to convince the investing public that actually, in a practical sense, this can work, as well as just as in an ethical sense. I just like your views really as to how one would go out and get the message out there.
So I would start by asking you whether you have a fact find of some kind which takes them through the issues that are relevant to try and work out what issues they're interested in. Because obviously if someone's not interested, they're not interested.
Yeah, so I
but I think most people are a bit interested.
Yeah, so I build a fact find into the regular risk profiling process, and I've used yours. And that's fine. But to get someone to come to me for that service is quite challenging, because there are a lot of advisors out there. There aren't so many discretionary managers out there that offer a full ethical service. But it's getting somebody to pick up the phone and say, you know what, I'm interested in that, let's give Chris a ring. As opposed to going to the bank.
I think one of the difficulties for this particular investment style or strategy is creating more and more awareness around it. I've actually found this quite interesting, as I'm in the IFA since 2006, so, and I don't often sort of, I have no particular need to sort of attend events where providers are presenting like this. But when I think back to when I was an advisor, and the sort of driver behind us doing what we do now, is that most people in this room can sort of look back to pre-millennium and provider relationships with advisors was really boots on the ground, and you would regularly see people in areas like this with ethical investment. It created a discussion opportunity with the advisor, and the sort of comments that have been made from Alliance in the presentation this morning are the sort of things that were generally conveyed face to face. That's gone, and I think it's important that consumer awareness is created for these type of investments. We've got to look at the methodology to deliver the message to the messenger, and technology is a way of doing it. And I think, as we said this morning, there's lots of this material. Geoff's done some fantastic research materials, your organisation as well. It's ways of pulling all these things together.
Case studies can really help. I mean, we've seen case studies that hand out to people, as well as discussions, obviously, but to provide, maybe insights that can be mixed, or provide a bit of a qualitative background as well as quantitative facts, like research and performance analysis data. It's really very useful to put in front of people. And there are a few white papers out there, so if you're interested, I'm happy to follow up afterwards. Yeah,
I think case studies of successful shares. I used to promote investment trusts, used to manage investment trusts and try and explain my investment process to potential shareholders. And we would always go along with a few company examples, exactly as Peter did with Kingspan. So I think they would be helpful, or might be helpful. What UKSIF has always thought is if we could get case studies of some of your clients and publicise those during Good Money Week, I don't know whether for regulatory reasons or whatever reasons, we've never been inundated. That's a polite way of saying we've had very few offered to us. But if you could supply us with examples of clients, Mrs. Jones, who did X 5 years ago and the performance has been wonderful, and Mrs. Jones is happy having done it, we can publicise that through Good Money Week. The journalists will love that. The journalists are a bit bored of people like me ringing up and talking risk return. If you can make it human with a few case studies, we think that would get really good traction.
I think it's a good idea. And the other thing is that I do think it is quite a leap for someone to say, okay, I'm now going to completely change 100% of my portfolio into this other new strategy. But what you could do is to say, well, look, it's a different type of investment strategy, and it might zig when your other portfolios are zagging, and so it's a diversification. So why not try it with 5-10% of the portfolio and see how it goes? And then, that's certainly how I entered into this market with an ISA.
Are there other thoughts I'm thinking, Christian, maybe some of the IFAs, any other tips for infusing clients in this area? Because I normally hear it the other way around, that it's the financial advisor who said, you're not going into these funds because they're so different from other funds, therefore we're uncomfortable with them, which for all the same stuff, I think it's nonsense. But your way around, if you're enthusiastic about getting into it, I don't know if the other people here...
I would concur with what Peter said. I find that, I don't tend to get people coming in and saying, I'm ethical. They don't do that. You have to dig a little bit deeper. So I often find, actually, when you talk to people and you're talking about their lifestyle, and most people have got kids or grandkids, and you say, have you thought about sort of your legacy, what you want to leave, how you want to be remembered in the world, and how that has an impact. And so I found that you tend to discover that people are, and then you talk about, well, there are these funds out there are these products out there, and you talk about how, in fact, they can add value. And then I find that I'm tending to say, okay, do 20% of your portfolio. Don't do it all. If it goes well, then we go back and do another 20%. And I think that does, for me, that works very well with people.
But I'd say for clients who haven't come to us because they have any particular ethical or social concerns, they're just run-of-the-mill human beings who come off the street. But I found that, and I would actually say Sustainable Futures Fund's approach, when that was launched back, 2000? Something like that. But I think that was, that's probably been the best setup. I'm not talking about arguing ethical, but actually talking about the point you made, Peter, about shareholder. You, a shareholder, be able to make an impact. I think there was an example of you were one of a number of fund managers, they got together on some issue. I can't remember what was it.
Was HIV,
government and
Glaxo and HIV.
For example, and there was another one was the example of the Nike. It's the clothing supplies, right? And their
Access to
share value
instance,
simply falls.
child
But
labour.
those little stories like that, I found clients really open up. Right. And they get, and they're really, that from, it's those sort of issues, in my experience, that really make clients wake up. I have very few clients. I mean, I would say 80% of our clients are wholly invested in ethically or socially responsible. And they're not, the majority of them did not come to us looking for ethical investments.
So,
I don't know, have been around since the late 70s.
So what did you do to find out they were ethical? How they came in without an ethical hat, but then they ended up in unethical opportunities. So what was the process? How did that happen?
Well, talking about the issues. I mean, I was saying like that.
So fact finding and digging.
Yeah.
Okay.
And various pictures come to mind of sort of lovely old ladies, who's sitting there, and their eyes sort of clicked. He said, really, telling them about, that their money could actually make a difference. It could be part of part of something that actually has an impact and makes a difference.
Yeah.
And they can meet their requirements with regard to getting some sort of return if the markets are doing well and so on.
Mm-hmm.
I think this touches on a couple of the big myths that it's just giving me an idea, but some of the myths around this industry. One is that you quite often see articles in the press where people imply that people are either ethical or not ethical. I simply don't buy that. I don't think those of us that have been doing this for a while.
Do you think clients invest in specialised products, or really off the wall, but not retail, or investing in perhaps $500,000 minimum investment opportunities? Literally, we're talking a lot of money.
Do I think people
Yeah,
invest
it's
in
very, very specialised products. Yeah.
I think
perhaps.
some people love that stuff. They're appropriate for a small number of people, but obviously not the majority. But I remember doing work with a very high-profile IFA down in Bristol a number of years ago, and he basically set up his 10% rule for his clients. He'd recommend to everybody that they should put 10% of their money into some kind of an SRI ethical option, just because he felt it was a good hedge against everything else. He thought it made sense. If he uncovered people who were really into it, okay, they could do more. But he felt that 10% was the right kind of amount. And the other myth, I guess, is that people think that shareholders can't make a difference. Well, crikey, if the people who own the companies that are in all of our investment pots can't make a difference, who else can make a difference to the world? I mean, of course investors can make a difference. We've seen great initiatives, access to medicines, equator principles, child labour and the Nike and the stitching football stuff years ago. This is really big stuff that investors get behind and change. But it comes down to issues around trust of the industry. People don't really believe this is happening, but from being inside the industry and knowing how passionate so many of the people are who work within these funds, some of them don't even, they'll be young researchers, they may not even understand investment at all, but they come in and start asking questions and feed that through to fund managers, and really bring this incredible expertise and resource to investors if only they could find out it was there.
Is there a view from the panel just on in relation to the European market is substantially bigger, I think, than the UK market, why that is and what lessons could be learned to address Chris's point here about more clients coming to...
Any parts of the European market in particular, just generally, because
Well,
obviously...
it's just a bigger, there's more money, I think, in these sort of
Dutch,
structures.
Belgian, French.
You get bogged down in definitions quite a lot here. So Holland is a big market driven by institutional interest in fiduciary duty, which is more demanding than currently over here. I talk regularly to the heads of the national SIFs in Europe, and they're jealous of the UK. They think I have it easy because our market is so large and so buoyant and so growing. Their markets, Italy, Spain, far less mature, Germany to an extent. They are, lots of them exploring the route of labelling, but in a far more directive sense, classifying this fund is green, ethical, sustainable, whatever you want to call it, the rest aren't. That's certainly something we in the UK want to hold at arm's length. Look how many styles Julia's identified. Each of those represents an innovation, like people like Alliance or Web, and we want to encourage that. So the markets are different. There's a demand there for it, but the markets are different. They're less well evolved at this stage.
there have been some sort of seminal moments in some European markets. I mean, in Holland there was a film sort of 7 or 8 years ago about exposure of much of the Dutch pension fund industry to cluster bombs and armaments, but that caused a real sort of rumpus and a reaction. And so there have been some sort of significant catalysts in some European markets, I think. And it may be that things like the controversy last year around comic relief and their exposure may start to raise visibility in this market in the UK as well.
I see they joined the PRI last month.
Yeah,
sure. I mean, that's for comic relief. If you talk to clients about, look, even comic relief is saying that you've got to think about responsible investment. Frankly, it's bad for business if you don't, and I guess that will help. Yes. We talk about red faces rather than red noses, I think. Might vote for this time.
Can I ask you a question about ratings, Geoff? How would you see the ratings being used? You're 25. Do you see them going straight to that list, or analysing by annual sector and cross-referencing?
I think in combination with Julie's questionnaire, I think they can then get signposted straight to the list and use that based on the questions and then what sort of style, and look at the funds that are available. So I do think that it's a standalone solution for advisors, safe in the knowledge that those funds have gone through the same methodology that we've applied to our funds generally. So that would help, I believe, in creation of portfolios.
Yeah.
But I think the point's also been made that the situation may be that not everyone is coming in to invest all their monies necessarily down the SRI route. So this, again, could be used as an option to say, okay, you're interested in that particular style, there's one fund, we can put an X percentage of your monies into that particular fund.
So maybe started with equity funds and then cross-referenced.
Yeah, absolutely, and that might fit in with their overall approach to investing. I think it's an interesting point, though, isn't it? It's already been raised as to whether advisors can take a proactive or a reactive stance, and clearly, why wouldn't you ask a question? Why wouldn't you have the conversation with the client? And we've all said, so we're repeating it, but we're repeating it for hopefully some value. I think we've recognised that advisors perhaps have stepped back because they haven't then, having asked the question and got a positive, they haven't then known where to go. So I think now, I'm blowing my own trumpet, and Julie's trumpet as well, but we've given, hopefully, a source of research and fund list that they can then use. So there's no reason behind not asking the question in the first place. So I don't know who is responsible. If it's the regulator that we should talk to say, perhaps we should be in a nice way, or is it the Association of Professional, whatever they're called now, IFA as it was, whatever it is now. Yeah, it's all these 3-4 letter acronyms. The Association of Advisors. I don't know why they put the word professional. Is it professional in there? Aren't all advisors professional? Aren't we all professional? Anyway, I won't go on that soapbox. Maybe it's a discussion we should have with them just to generally raise the profile. If you're not asking this question or this series of questions, why don't you? It's, again, I'm a simple guy. I just can't understand why it doesn't happen.
I think perhaps one last question. I think that would have been a great point to end on, but George.
Well, it was just a small point. There's a follow-up question to that. You've talked a lot about ISO 22222. I've never really understood how many. If that's a high profile, if it's a well-adopted standard, if it's a standard that IFAs generally aspire to have. If it's
Sorry, has anyone else been involved in it, or is this down
and is it, and how can one promote it?
There's now 2 sides to it, and I won't remember the number of the other one because the 2s are very easy to remember. The other one is 574 something, I don't know. So you can have individual advisors who are certificated, or you can have advisory firms, and that's a new development. I think the individual ISA thing internationally, yes, very big. In the UK, you're talking in the hundreds of advisors. I've been working quite closely with Standards International to basically support them in what happens on this side. they're making good progress and they're adding to their numbers all the time, but it's by no means the kind of numbers that Derek's got on his user list or advisor list.
Are there competing standards
Certificating
that are
firms is
more
going to be really interesting, because that will put pressure on the whole companies to say, we get this stuff, we do it, and they've got to be able to ask these questions. So that's new. Remains to be seen how well adopted that is. Okay, so
probably Julie's going to kick me later, but I do think that we tend to overcomplicate things, and I'm not certain that advisory businesses in the UK aspire to that ISO. But why wouldn't you aspire to having a client service proposition that is teasing out some of the issues that affect us in
Also, I think if you explain what it is, I mean, you just put ISO 222, people, and it's on literature, people don't really.
No, well, if you have to explain what it is, then it's just what is the value of it?
yeah, I think for those people who like that kind of thing, I am not a process person. For me, it's a little bit like pulling teeth trying to do it. But I know lots of people I've worked with over the years are really process driven. So for them, if they want to say, I follow this process which says I get to use this kite mark and I'm a best practice, whatever, then that's fantastic.
But it adds credibility. If you explain what it is, it adds credibility.
And those IFAs who I know who've gone for it are really highly regarded advisors who are very, very successful business people, and they found it useful. It's a small cohort of people though, but I think what it does, it just gives IFAs another tool, if you like, in their kit bag to say this demonstrates professionalism. Now, some advisors want to go down that route, others don't, and that's fine, it's just part of the kit bag. Right, I think perhaps, unless there's any last urgent questions, let's take this coffee.
Sorry, I'm just going to be really cheeky now. I've written a book on this area. It took me some time. It's my take on the whole kind of thing we've been talking about. It's called Invest, Feel Good, Make a Difference. It's on Amazon. You can get it there. Well, I've got 3 in my briefcase. But if people are interested, it's kind of aimed at the mainstream public. But I think for IFAs who are kind of new to the area, or anybody who's new to the area, they might find it an interesting take. Thank you.
And I wish you luck with that. That's really exciting. Another example of innovation in this sector.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All remains to be said is thank you so much for coming along, for your participation. Thank you very much to all the speakers and for your support with the different areas that we've worked on over time. Thank you for that also. And please do join us for coffee. And yeah, welcome. I bring you coffee. Hope it should be ready outside. But thank you.